Kat coming to you here with a summary of the bipartisan bill to allow student loan borrowers to discharge their student loans in bankruptcy. I will give you a summary, a lowdown with a little bit of history, and what does that mean? What opinions were given on why they will not give mass discharge will also be spoken about in this video. So here we go. Part one of this video is what is happening in Congress right now. The latest is Senator Durbin came out with the support of Chuck Grassley as well to talk about how they do not believe student loan discharge or forgiveness is the route to reforming higher education. They talked about how the system's broken, the cost of college is broken, that we need to reform it through the act of Congress and through changing the Higher Education Act. So they talk a lot about that. However, they want to allow student loan borrowers to discharge their student loans in bankruptcy like it was in 1988. You see, a lot of these Congress members and people who work in Congress today at one point did borrow student loans. However, the difference is with the 2000s change in the bankruptcy law, it made it so that it's harder for student loan borrowers to discharge their student loans in bankruptcy. They called it something like you have to prove undue financial hardship, which literally the criteria for that meant you could never pay off your student loans into the foreseeable future. And they've only ever tracked 4 cases in the history of the United States bankruptcy court to discharge student loans for public student loans, that is. So that was after they passed the bankruptcy bill in the 2000s. So what it was like in the earlier days was that you could discharge your student loans in bankruptcy. So what this bipartisan committee is hoping to do is allow for a specific amount of waiting period, like 5 years after graduation, 7 years after graduation. If you happen to file for bankruptcy, then they will allow you to roll your student loans into that bankruptcy proceeding if you have met the criteria of that waiting period. So that's the latest on the bill. It's a big movement towards the bipartisan support. And of course, in the congressional hearing that was 2 hours long, I listened to the whole thing. They talked about how it's unfair that those that didn't get a degree should carry the burden of those that did get a degree. Of course, I disagree with that, because when we pass reforms and give taxes back to big businesses, we don't say, well, people without businesses shouldn't pay the taxes for those that do want to start businesses. Or you could have that argument for almost anything, right? Like, why should one group of people pay the bill for another group of people? But that's how, you could say that about anything, yet we don't bring up that argument. We always bring up that argument when it helps a marginalized group of people, or help young people, or people without political power, right? So I completely disagree with that. The next part of this video I want to talk about is, what does that mean? I think this is a movement forward by congressional members to show that they're doing something with student loans, like they're reforming the bankruptcy law. They're doing something to address, in this bankruptcy law, they're doing something to address if they keep on having consistently people come to bankruptcy proceedings with the same schools, then there will be repercussion for schools that keep on predatorily putting people into a pathway that's getting really poor outcomes, right? So that's going to be part of the bankruptcy reform. There obviously is conversation about higher education reform, but that was not specifically discussed in detail, at least not the part I watched. So what does this mean for student loan borrowers? This literally means, if you are on a federal income-based plan already, income-driven plan, to continue to do so. It also means the likelihood that there is going to be any congressional movement towards forgiving student loans, and any type of massive student loan forgiveness is pretty much I would say under 1% chance at this point. I think Congress has come out and said what their preferential way of dealing with student loans should be. They recognize there's a problem in our system, but of course, everybody has a different opinion on how it should be resolved. And of course, addressing the root of the problem always helps, but we're not in agreement of how to address with the immediate problem. So it looks like student loans are going to be kicked back in September, and it looks like Biden is taking that route because he doesn't want to delay the infrastructure bill and other bills he has going through Congress. He wants Congress to act on the matters that he finds important, and unfortunately, student loans is not one of them, especially when he doesn't have the support of Nancy Pelosi, who came out recently and said that he does not have the authorization to do anything. So what does that mean? Obviously, if you're on a federal plan, if you have undue hardship in September when it comes to paying your loans off, do not wait. Get help in as early by mid to end of August, early September. Do not wait until the last minute because your servicer is going to be inundated with phone calls, paperwork. That would be my recommendation. Use the programs we currently have in place because it looks like anything that's passed will have to be through an act of Congress, and acts of Congress can be derailed, and as well as they're much more complex than an executive order. So I'd say let's not hold our breath for President Biden or Congress to act, and let's use the resources that we have in place to help us right now. So if you find this content to be helpful, we have all kinds of student loan content around student loans, buying a house, how do you get to your next financial goals. Please subscribe to our channel. I am a student loan borrower myself, and I have managed my student loan so it has not impeded me from building wealth, buying homes, and doing the next step and starting LoanSense to help others like me. So if we can be helpful to you at all, we welcome you. We also can introduce you to lenders that understand how to deal with student loans and borrowers with other debt obligations. So check out the links below. We will leave them below. You can also get started and use our free estimator tool to estimate the reduction you can get with your student loans, as well as how much home that can help you afford. Thank you for joining us.